In the preceding videos, you learned how to create your model segment set, how to join condition data into your modeling segment set, how to set up model parameters, and how to run your model. In this video, we will start looking at interventions, or treatments as they are called in JunoViewer. We will look at how you define treatments, how to set up a simple trigger, and also how to define the impact that treatments have on model parameter values. Before you can run a model that applies treatments using a set of condition triggers, you need to get some basics in place first. The basic steps to become familiar with are defining treatments and the cost associated with them, setting up trigger equations for treatments, defining a budget to constrain the quantity of treatments applied, and picking a trigger model and running it. In this video, we will cover the first two elements in the above list. To keep the videos a bit short, we will then address the remaining two elements in separate videos that will follow after this one. So let's go to our DMS file and have a look at the treatments sheet on the DMS file. So here I am in my treatment sheet, and you can see that in the basic DMS that we have provided for you for this tutorial, we have defined two very simple treatments, a seal and a rehabilitation. So a surface seal and a rehabilitation. Now the way that you define treatments are explained in our online help. So if I go to JunoViewer, in JunoViewer, if you just click on this help icon, it will open up for you JunoViewer help. And you can simply just type in treatments, and you will see that one of the help topics that will come up will be the DMS file treatment options. And if you go to that help topic, then you will see a description of all of these elements that you can see here in detail. So don't worry if I go in this video, if I do not explain all of these properties. I'm going to just explain the most important ones that you need to know to get started. So in the DMS, first of all, we need to define a treatment name. These treatment names have to be single words, and they have to be unique. So you can't put something like surface seal. If you try to do that, JunoViewer will report an error and the model will not start to run. So we can actually test that if we want to. So if I put that in there and I save this, I go to JunoViewer and just update my DMS file. Now you can see if I check my model, JunoViewer will give me a warning that says the treatment name must consist of one word and cannot contain leading or trailing empty spaces. And it tells you what is the problem treatment, in this case surface seal. So I can just go in my DMS and correct that. So JunoViewer is quite helpful in terms of warning error messages to tell you where you have problems in your DMS file. And we'll talk about this also in more detail in a later stage in this video series. So for now, I'm just going to keep the name of this treatment to a seal. The treatment category could be a longer word, so I'm going to keep that, just make that surface seal. So if I have 3 or 4 different seal types, they will each have to have a different name, but the treatment category can be the same. I'm going to just skip these two properties. The use catalog, the description is obviously just a user-friendly description for the treatment. I'm also going to skip this fast lane treatments. That's a more advanced feature. Now, important is the cost unit. You can specify your treatment costs in square meter or meter. So I'm just going to keep it square meter, and I'll use these two default costs. So you can provide a cost for a lane treatment and a cost for a shoulder treatment. So you'll see if you go to your parameter sheet, this is where JunoViewer is actually going to get the length or the area depending whether your cost is per meter or per square meter. And these, just like the other parameters, you can either calculate the values based on the placeholder that are here on the general placeholder sheet, or you can refer to a column that is in your ForwardWorks program already, as we did with surface age and rut. So for example, if every one of your links has a custom area, maybe you've got some intersections or something like that there, you can always go and modify the data, the formalized area quantity associated with each model segment, and you can then use that area in your model calculations. So the key thing is that the treatment quantities are extracted from these three elements. And you'll notice that there's an area and a shoulder area. The reason for this is that sometimes, such as in the case of a overlay, if there is a shoulder in the lane, then it may be that you are actually only going to seal the lane and there's no cost for the shoulder. In other cases, you may have that the cost for the lane is going to be a fairly high cost, but you'll do a reduced treatment on the shoulder, so you could have a different rate for the shoulder. The key thing is that the shoulder has to be maintained. So you can't just ignore that over a 30-year modeling period. So you have to consider some sort of a cost for treating the shoulder. And of course, that requires you to have an indication of the width of the shoulders on each model segment. So then the very important element here is the trigger flag. And you'll see that the trigger flag has been set to a constant which is false for both of these treatment types. So I'm going to, just for the sake of explanation, I'm going to set a very, very simple trigger. I'm going to say that my surface seal will be triggered whenever the age is more than 8 years and the rut depth is less than 10 millimeters. So I don't want to apply a seal in this hypothetical case if there is already very high rut. And I also don't want to apply a seal if it was recently surfaced. So I'm going to refer back to these parameter placeholder values, which we have given really nice names here. So I can use that, and also the rut placeholder value. And I'm just going to use the standard Excel equation type to give a true or a false. So I can just build a trigger equation that says if and parameter surface age is bigger than 8 and parameter rut is bigger than, let's say, 12 millimeters, then in that case, and only in that case, trigger a surface seal. Otherwise, don't trigger anything. So that's the condition for a surface seal, right? So my condition is both of these parameters, surface age, need to be above 8 and rut depth needs to be, that should be less than 12, right? And then I can also say for rut depth, I'm going to have a simple trigger that says if parameter rut, and you can see how helpful it is if I use named ranges. I don't have to go and click around in my workbook. I know what my convention is for naming parameters, and I can just use that. So I'm going to say if the rut depth parameter is bigger than or equal to 15, then trigger a rehab. Otherwise, do not trigger a rehab. Okay, so there is obviously now here a sort of a no man's land for any modeling segment where the rut is above 12. It will not trigger a seal, and it also won't trigger anything until the rehab, until the rut depth has been progressed above 15. So that's a typical scenario where the road has got a high rut depth, but I can probably just leave it and maintain it for a few more years or something like that. Now, of course, you could also set up a maintenance cost equation and do a full net present value strategy assessment. And JunoViewer can do all of that for you, but that is a more advanced type of model, so we'll just leave that for a later stage in this video series. For now, my main purpose is just to show to you how you would set up a trigger using the Excel equation formula. So you can also ignore this threshold percent. The display color is just a way to use a nice display color for each, a different color for each treatment type. And again, if you go back to the help file, then this display color will be explained for you in detail here in a separate post, and you can see how to specify that color. Okay, so we've basically defined everything for our two treatments here. However, now we also need to define what will the impact of the treatment be. In other words, if I do a seal, obviously I want to not increment anymore my surface age in that year, but I want to reset my surface age. And I also, similarly, if I do a rehabilitation, it has to have some impact on the rod depth. So to set your reset values, we use a notation which is explained in our help file, and it's very simple. You'd use the word change and then put a pipe symbol, and then you use the parameter name, and you put a pipe symbol and 2. So if JunoViewer detects this format, it knows that you want to specify a reset. All right, and the important thing is that this word that you use here must be an exact match of one of your model parameters. If you use a word in here that does not match a current model parameter, then the DMS check will fail. And we can actually give a demonstration of that just now. So notice the convention is change, pipe symbol, model parameter name, pipe symbol 2. So let's go and put in a reset value for rod depth and surface age. So I'm just going to copy these two rows down, and then I'm going to use my convention change, and I put the pipe symbol, and I'm going to use surf age, and I'm putting a case sensitive match to my parameter name, and I'll go check it in a second, 2. And I also want to say change pipe symbol rut 2. So now I need to go and check that I've got my parameter names correct here. So to do that, I'm just going to go to the parameter sheet, and I'm going to copy these two parameters over, and I'll just temporarily place them into these two cells, so that I can check that I have exactly matched these names correctly. And I can see here I have put a surface age without an initial capital, and that's incorrect. So I can just go and copy this word here and just make sure to put it in there. And I'll do the same for rut. Here I can just correct it manually, rut. Right, so now I know that I've got this correct, and I can just delete this. I don't need it anymore. Now I need to specify what is the impact of surface seal on surface age. Well, I want to obviously change the surface age to 0 whenever I apply a surface seal, and if I apply a rehabilitation, I also want to change the surface age to 0. What about rod depth? Well, let's say, for example, that we know historically that a seal does not reset the rod depth completely. However, because of some repairs and things like that associated with the seal, normally the rod depth is reduced by about 20%. That means that if we apply a surface seal, we want to make the rod depth in the following year 80% of the existing rod depth. So a slight improvement in the existing rod depth. So to do that, I'm going to say equal 0.8 times the current value of the rod depth parameter. So again, I don't even have to go to the parameter sheet. I can just use my Excel autocomplete. And that means that if I put in a placeholder value here of, say, 10 millimeters, then I can go and look at my treatment, and it would say that 10 millimeters, the rut would be changed to 8 when I apply surface seal. What about rehab? Well, here I could have a full set of lookup equations or a equation based on historical research. In this case, I'm just going to say if I apply a rehab, then change my rut depth to, let's say, 3 millimeters. So a constant. But you could have, for example, a lookup parameter which says it depends on the surface type or something like that, like we showed in the previous video for the rut increment. And you can use that same equation right in here in the cell. So if I save this now, I'm ready to actually run this model with a trigger model. However, I need to first set up some constraints. So at this stage, I'm ready to actually run my model. However, before I can do that, as we explained earlier, we first need to set up some constraints. And in this case, we are going to use a budget constraint model. And also, just to start off the process, we will start with a simple model type. It will just be based on ranking and not based on economic net present value calculation. And we also therefore need to set up a ranking parameter. So we'll do that in further videos. For now, I just want to illustrate that if we upload this model, this DMS file, we should be ready to run it. And then I'm going to make a small mistake here, and I'll also show you how the model actually will check and help you to correct that error. So if I save this DMS file and I go back to JunoViewer, I can select my DMS file, upload it, and recheck my model. And here it warns me that the treatment category must consist of one word and cannot contain any leading or trailing empty spaces. So obviously I've made a mistake here. Earlier I told you that in the DMS file the treatment category can be 2 words, but obviously that cannot be the case. So I'll just put an underscore in here, or better yet, I'll just put seal. Now I can just go and save my DMS, go back to JunoViewer, upload that file again, check my model again, and this time all the checks were passed, so I should be ready to just run my model. So you can see that inevitably you are going to make some mistakes in setting up your DMS, but JunoViewer is very helpful in telling you where your mistakes are. Our development team have put in a lot of effort to give quite informative messages for you when you check the model using this check selected button, and that should help you greatly in setting up your DMS file. So just to illustrate that, I'm going to deliberately make a mistake in my DMS, and what I'm going to do is to put in here, instead of the word rut, I am just going to put in rut ABC. Now there is no parameter such as rut ABC, so my model checker should alert me to the fact that I've got a model parameter reset in here, which is nonsensical. So if I save this and again go and upload this DMS file and check my model, it tells me I cannot find the parameter rut ABC associated with treatment impact code change rut ABC2. Parameter names are case sensitive, check treatment seal, and the same for treatment rehab. Okay, so we know how to correct that. Let's go and correct that quickly. I just take out this ABC, and since I know there is a parameter called rut, this should work. So I can just save this. I go back again to JunoViewer, select my corrected DMS, upload it, and check my model again. And this time it passes and I'm ready to run the forecast. So in this video, we showed you how to define a treatment, how to set a treatment trigger, and how to define the impact of treatments or reset values. In our next video, we will show how you can define a budget to constrain the treatments when you run a trigger model. If you are following along with this video series and have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact us via email at info@lonrix.com. Thanks for watching.